All right, everyone listening out there, I want to welcome you guys to the first ever episode of the Church Debater and Preacher Mike. I'm Greg. Mike, how are you doing today?
I'm Mike, and I'm doing well.
Good deal. Here's what we hope to accomplish with this podcast. We know that there are always a lot of questions out there that sometimes we have. You know, sometimes personally, I've even been nervous when I catch myself questioning God. I mean, is it okay to do that? Is it not okay to do that? Is it okay to do that, but then our faith takes over and we realize that we're in a certain situation, maybe to learn from it, or maybe that we just have to grow through it and that type of thing. So that's what we hope to gain from this. Our format will be this. I'm going to take the role as the church debater. I am going to collect questions that I've either heard or maybe that have popped into my own mind, or maybe that you've sent me, and we'll get that email address to you guys later. We'll challenge Mike to hear his answers to these questions. Now, one unique thing we want to tell you, Mike has no idea what questions I'm going to ask. So he likes it that way. I like it that way. I appreciate Mike's ability to answer questions like this. So,
with you on the other side, this is really nerve-wracking.
I get that a lot.
We've been through so much.
We have.
We were on the other side of the basketball coaching realm against me.
Yes.
Or you were an umpire when I was coaching.
Yes.
So we go back and forth a long way.
And Mike, I don't mind sharing with everybody too. You know that when I was coaching, I had some anger issues. Now that's been 10 or 15 years ago. Would you at least agree that I've done better here lately?
Oh, you're a totally different guy.
All right. If we won't share the story about me jumping up on the scores table one time, we'll let that go. And we'll
let's not even talk about it.
All right. So if you're ready for some questions, we'll shoot for about 10 minutes. But I've got a couple of questions that I have read while all the quarantine situations have been going on. So here's what I want to do. Mm-hmm. The first two questions are similar. So I think I will ask you both of them at the same time, because I'm going to guess that your answer would overlap for both of them.
Okay. Cool.
So here we go. Here's the two questions. Is the coronavirus a punishment of God for the sin that the world finds itself in these days? And the second question is, how can a loving God allow our current situation to happen? So the first question is basically, is this a punishment from God because we're a sinful world? And the second one is, how can a loving God allow this to happen to us? So go ahead.
Now, these podcasts are designed to get right to the point and not belabor it for a long time. So there's a lot to that.
Yes.
There is a way to get right to it, in my opinion. And what I always say is this. We live in a world where we have freedom of choice. There are only two possible worlds, and only one of those gives us the life that we now have. We could have a life that we are automaton robots, where we make no decisions and we do exactly what we are told to do. That's a different life than what we have. But we live in a world of free choice. And if you have a world of free choice, by definition, people will make bad choices.
Yes.
Bad choices happen, people suffer. God, the Creator, created a world of free choice. Therefore, He allows free choice to take its pathway, whatever it is. Now, there have been many times, of course, that God intervenes in one way or another. But basically what I would say is that God is allowing this because the free choice of someone somewhere began the process. And I think the whole thing is related to free choice. That's the way I would I would view it. But to say that he specifically reached down and put it here for the purpose of punishment or whatever, the problem I have with that is that I admit in Bible times God did that, but he always said he was doing it so that people would know. But when he does it, if he's doing it now and we don't know for sure, then that's a little different to me. Does God work within the realm of life to bring about his will? Yes. But to say that he has caused this for the purpose of retribution or punishment, I don't think it is possible to say that.
Right, right. Let me expand just a little bit.
Sure.
What advice would you have to those? And this is not where I got the question from.
Right.
What advice would you have for those? Let me back up and give you, for instance, for the first time earlier this week, I now know I know someone who has contracted the virus.
Okay.
And it's difficult to, I don't know them well. I just know that this person is a super friendly coach. And since I am a sports official, I have talked to this person often. I have also subbed for this person's children. And it's difficult to think about them having to go through this. Do you think it's tougher when it happens to somebody, do you think it's going to be tougher for that family than those of us that are just doing our best to stay out of the way of it? What advice would you have for that family who is specifically going through it right now and had to quarantine themselves?
Yeah. Well, I think that the first thing that I would say is not to dabble in the idea that God is somehow punishing this person specifically and then go try to find what it might be.
Yes.
Can't know that. It's not possible to know that. And therefore, it would be even more mental damage to what they're already dealing with. I would say, number two, I would say that one of the challenges that all of us are going to have in this thing is not to become people who are bitter because of what's going on. People are losing a lot of money. People are losing jobs. People are losing friends, losing their health. And we can become people who are bitter. I wonder if maybe all of us ought to spend more time in the book of Job during this time.
Right.
About a guy who went through a lot. And so it is possible. So not to become bitter. I would also say to make resolve. When we get through it, to resolve to be better on the other end than we were going through it. Even if I don't believe necessarily that God specifically caused it to happen, it doesn't mean that his intention is not that I should learn something from it, for it is. Whatever I'm going through, I'm supposed to learn from it. Even if he didn't cause it, I still should learn from it. And as we all know, challenges cause us to grow and be stronger. So those are the things that I would say. I would say don't look for the reason why in your particular case that it happened. Learn not to be bitter and then try to figure out how to be better on the other end.
Right. Very good. Very good. I've got one final question for you that not quite as intense. You're going to know this question came from me. So,
okay.
Here we go. And I've actually got a series of leading questions. You're scared already, aren't you?
No, not with you.
All right. What would you say, first of all, was the type of dress when they were worshiping in their homes in the days of the New Testament church?
I would say it was exactly what they did every day.
Okay. All right. Let me ask you this. When did we change? What caused us to change to, we call it our Sunday's best now. Right. We always dress up better for our worship services these days. You have any idea when that changed or what caused it to change?
Well, I don't know. I've never researched it, but my position would be that in years ago, and in the probably back in the beginnings of high church, I would say the emphasis on dress and those kinds of things really became apparent. However, 1 Timothy chapter 2 describes a situation where women were concerned about their outward appearance more than their inner appearance.
Right.
So it even was a problem in the first century. I think the dress issue in this area has a lot to do, unfortunately, with us either wanting to impress others or wanting others not to criticize. Therefore,
okay,
that's what we do.
Okay. Well, that was the two leading questions. Here's the real question. With that in mind, since so many of us are now worshiping, thank goodness our churches have internet, the ability to stream our internet services online. I'm thankful to God that we have that ability.
Absolutely.
And I know that you are conducting a service every Sunday morning as well as Sunday night and Wednesdays.
Yes.
What I would ask you then, since there's so many of us that are worshiping from home as best we can, I've bought communion supplies. I feel like I am as worshiping as well as I can given the situation.
Sure.
But I normally dress up for church.
Right.
What should be my dress at home while this is coming up?
Well, I even had obviously something to say about it the other day, and I had talked about it Sunday night. And I'm glad you give me the chance to make sure that I have clarified it well.
Good.
I don't think there's a right and wrong answer. But what I will say is there have been many studies and much written about the concept of dressing for success. In other words, when we take an effort to be more prepared, we do better. People who work at home, when they get up and shower and get dressed and work, I think they're better than they would be if for 3 days they never showered, they never brushed their teeth, they never did their hair, and they just sat and worked.
Right.
I think the mentality that goes with the preparation of dress helps in the situation. The fact that we're not able to assemble as a group, there's a group dynamic that helps create a worship atmosphere, that helps our minds engage more. We can't have that now. So we have to be even more concerned about the worship dynamic, creating it for ourselves. And one of the ways I think we can do it is to be prepared, not let it just be something that happens, but I prepare for it. I'm, as you said, you bought what you needed. I think you get up, you shower like a normal day, you get dressed, and you're there and ready to go. And a second thing that I would say is, don't think of this time as I'm watching worship. It must be participatory.
Absolutely.
And you're doing just because you can see it on TV. And by seeing it, you're doing it. No, worship is a time to participate. During this time, let's make sure we're participating and not just observing.
All right. Very good. Thank you very much, Mike. I will be the first to say that Mike is really good at answering these questions. He has an extensive knowledge of the scripture. And of course, that's the way we need to answer all questions that we might need to ask ourselves. Let me tell everyone before we close, we've got an email address established for this podcast because we want your challenging questions. Send any questions you may have to churchdebater@gmail.com. That's churchdebater@gmail.com. We'll make sure we have those on a future show. Mike, thank you very much, and we'll try to get together and do this again next week.
Hey, I'm excited, man. Thanks. Good idea. I like it.
All right. All right. Have a good one.
Thanks, buddy. Bye-bye.
All right.